The sleek exploration vessel Horizon pierced through the atmosphere of Zephyria, a newly discovered exoplanet that promised to expand humanity's understanding of the universe. Captain Ilara Chen stood at the helm, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling azure and emerald landscape below. After 5 years of interstellar travel, they were about to make history. Final approach initiated, announced the ship's AI, its voice calm and steady. Atmospheric composition within acceptable parameters. Gravity at 1.2 Earth standard. Ilara nodded, her short black hair bobbing slightly. Acknowledged. Team, prepare for landing procedures. Dr. Marcus Rivera, the mission's lead xenobiologist, practically bounced with excitement next to her. His weathered face, usually creased with worry lines, now shone with childlike wonder. Can you believe it, Captain? We're the first humans to set foot on a potentially habitable world outside our solar system. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Dr. Ilara cautioned, though she couldn't quite suppress a smile. We still need to land this bird in one piece. As the horizon descended, the alien landscape came into sharper focus. Vast plains of tall, iridescent grass swayed beneath a lavender sky. In the distance, mountain ranges with peculiar spiral formations reached towards the heavens. Fascinating, murmured Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's geologist. Those mountains, they don't follow any geological patterns we're familiar with. This planet's formation must have been radically different from Earth's. The ship touched down with barely a tremor, a testament to both the advanced technology and the skill of their pilot, Lieutenant Zara Okonkwo. As the engines powered down, an eerie silence fell over the crew. Ilara took a deep breath. All right, people, this is what we've trained for. Environmental suits on, weapons check, and remember, we're here to observe and make peaceful contact if possible. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Clear. A chorus of "Yes, Captain" echoed through the ship. As the airlock hissed open, Ilara stepped onto the alien soil, her boots sinking slightly into the spongy surface. Mission Control, this is Captain Chen. The Horizon has landed successfully on Zephyria. We are commencing exploration. The team spread out, each member focused on their specific tasks. Dr. Rivera crouched to examine the strange grass, carefully taking samples. Lieutenant Okonkwo conducted atmospheric readings, while Dr. Tanaka studied the soil composition. Ilara kept a watchful eye on her surroundings, her hand never straying far from her sidearm. Despite the breathtaking beauty of the alien world, years of training had instilled a constant vigilance in her. It was Dr. Tanaka who first noticed the movement. "Captain," she whispered, pointing towards a nearby copse of trees with spiral-shaped trunks. "I think we're being watched." Ilara followed her gaze, her hand tightening on her weapon. "All personnel, stay alert. Possible contact imminent." From the twisted trees emerged a group of beings that were at once familiar and utterly alien. They were roughly humanoid in shape, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But their skin shimmered with a pearlescent sheen, changing colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Their eyes were large and multifaceted, reminiscent of insect eyes, yet somehow conveying intelligence and curiosity. The aliens wore simple garments that seemed to be woven from the same iridescent grass that covered the plains. As they approached, Ilara noticed that they all appeared to be female, or at least possessed features that humans would associate with femininity. "Incredible," breathed Dr. Rivera. "Convergent evolution on a scale we never imagined possible." Ilara raised her hand in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We come in friendship," she said, knowing that the aliens couldn't understand her words, but hoping her tone would convey her meaning. The lead alien, taller than the others and with a subtle crown-like protrusion on her head, stepped forward. She tilted her head, studying the humans with obvious curiosity. Then, to the absolute shock of the entire human team, she and her companions reached down and lifted the hems of their grass-woven skirts, exposing their lower bodies. Ilara blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. Behind her, she heard Lieutenant Okonkwo stifle a surprised laugh. Dr. Rivera, ever the scientist, was the first to recover. Fascinating. It appears to be some sort of greeting ritual. Notice how they're maintaining eye contact. This isn't a sexual display, but a cultural custom. Ilara nodded, forcing herself to look at the aliens' faces rather than their exposed lower halves. All right, team, let's reciprocate the greeting. When in Rome, as they say. With varying degrees of hesitation and embarrassment, the human team lifted the hems of their environmental suits, exposing the lower portions of their legs. The effect on the aliens was immediate. Their skin rippled with waves of color, blue, green, and gold, in what seemed to be an expression of joy or approval. The lead alien lowered her skirt and approached Ilara, extending a six-fingered hand. Ilara, after a moment's hesitation, reached out and grasped the alien's hand. The texture was smooth and slightly cool, like touching polished stone. As their hands met, a tingling sensation traveled up Ilara's arm, and suddenly, impossibly, she could understand the alien's thoughts. "Welcome, sky travelers," the alien's voice echoed in Ilara's mind. "I am Shira, matriarch of the Zephyr clan. We have long awaited your arrival." Ilara gasped, her mind reeling from the implications. You knew we were coming." Shira's multifaceted eyes sparkled with amusement. "The stars have whispered of your journey. We are the Zephyrians, keepers of the wind and guardians of this world. Your coming heralds a new age for both our peoples." As the initial shock wore off, Ilara's training kicked in. "I am Captain Ilara Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." Shira nodded, her skin shifting to a warm golden hue. "Knowledge and friendship you shall have, Captain Chen. But first, you must understand our ways. The lifting of coverings is more than a greeting. It is a sign of trust, of openness. By participating, you have shown yourselves to be beings of honor." Ilara couldn't help but smile. All their preparations, all their contingency plans, and first contact had come down to a moment of cultural awkwardness and improvisation. "We're honored by your welcome, Matriarch Shira. We have much to learn from each other." As if on cue, a distant roar echoed across the plains, causing the Zephyrians to shift nervously, their skin taking on mottled patterns of grey and red. "What was that?" Ilara asked, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Shira's expression grew serious, her thoughts tinged with worry. "That, Captain Chen, is why the stars have guided you to us. The Shadowmoors grow bolder, encroaching upon our lands. We had hoped, but come. Night approaches, and it is not safe to be in the open. We will shelter you in our village and speak more of the dangers that threaten us all." As the human team followed the Zephyrians towards their village, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that their mission had just become far more complex and far more dangerous than anyone could have anticipated. The thrill of first contact was quickly giving way to the realization that they had stepped into a world on the brink of crisis. The iridescent grass whispered beneath their feet as they walked, and in the distance, the alien sun began to set, painting the lavender sky with streaks of gold and crimson. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Ilara knew that the fate of two species now rested on the decisions they would make in the coming days. As they crested a hill, the Zephyrian village came into view. Structures that seemed to be grown rather than built rose organically from the landscape, their spiral shapes echoing the strange mountains in the distance. Ilara marveled at the seamless blend of nature and civilization. "Welcome," Shira's thoughts resonated in Ilara's mind, "to Whisperwind, the heart of the Zephyr clan. Here we will rest, and you will learn of the storm that gathers on our horizon." Ilara nodded, her mind racing with questions and possibilities. As the first stars began to twinkle in the alien sky, she knew that their real journey and their real challenges were only just beginning. As the twin moons of Zephyria rose in the lavender sky, casting an ethereal glow over the village of Whisperwind, Captain Ilara Chen and her team found themselves seated in a circular structure that served as the Zephyrians' communal gathering place. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsating with bioluminescent patterns that shifted in harmony with the thoughts and emotions of those present. Dr. Marcus Rivero was practically vibrating with excitement, his fingers flying over his data pad as he recorded every detail of their surroundings. The level of symbiosis between the Zephyrians and their environment is unprecedented, he whispered to Ilara. Their entire civilization seems to be built on a deep connection with the planet's ecosystem. Ilara nodded, her attention focused on matriarch Shira, who sat across from them in a position of honor. The alien leader's skin rippled with shades of blue and green, reflecting the serious nature of their gathering. Sky travelers, Shira's thoughts resonated in their minds. We welcome you to our home. But as you have no doubt sensed, our world stands on the brink of great peril. The shadow moors you mentioned earlier? Ilara asked, leaning forward. Shira's eyes darkened, facets glinting in the bioluminescent light. Yes, they are an ancient enemy, beasts of shadow and hunger that have long dwelled in the deep caverns beneath our mountains. For generations, we have maintained a fragile balance, but now, her thoughts trailed off, tinged with worry. Lieutenant Zara Okonkwo, ever the tactician, spoke up. What's changed? Why are they suddenly a greater threat? A ripple of unease passed through the gathered Zephyrians. One of their elders, introduced as Vexara, answered, "The winds speak of great shifts beneath the earth. The shadow moors grow in number and boldness. Our defenses, once sufficient, now falter against their onslaught." Dr. Yuki Tanaka's eyes widened with realization. Captain, the unusual geological formations we observed, could they be related to these underground disturbances? Before Ilara could respond, a young Zephyrian burst into the gathering, her skin flashing alarming shades of red and orange. Matriarch, scouts report shadow moor activity at the eastern border. The room erupted into a flurry of motion and thought speech. Ilara stood, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Matriarch Shira, we stand ready to assist in any way we can. Shira's gaze met Ilara's, a mix of gratitude and hesitation in her multifaceted eyes. Your offer is appreciated, Captain Chen, but you do not know the nature of the beast we face. Perhaps it would be wise for you to remain here, where it's safe. Ilara squared her shoulders. With all due respect, Matriarch, we didn't travel across the stars to hide when our hosts are in danger. My team is well trained and equipped. Let us help. A moment of silent communication seemed to pass between Shira and the other Zephyrian elders. Finally, she nodded. Very well, but you must follow our lead. The shadow moors are unlike any predator you have encountered before. As they rushed to prepare, Dr. Rivera pulled Ilara aside. Captain, this is an unprecedented opportunity to observe Zephyrian battle tactics. But we must be cautious not to interfere with their natural societal development, the prime directive. I'm well aware of the implications, Doctor. Ilara cut him off, her tone sharp but not unkind. But right now, our priority is survival and building trust with our hosts. We'll deal with the ethical ramifications later. Within minutes, a mixed group of humans and Zephyrians was racing across the moonlit plains towards the eastern border. The Zephyrians moved with an otherworldly grace, their feet barely seeming to touch the ground as they glided over the iridescent grass. As they approached the border, marked by a line of twisted, spiral trees, an eerie silence fell over the group. Ilara felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up, her instincts screaming that something was very, very wrong. Suddenly, the shadows between the trees began to move, coalescing into forms that defied description. They were darkness-given form, with gleaming eyes and maws that seemed to devour the very light around them. Shadow moors. Shira's mental voice rang out in alarm. Form the wind barrier. The Zephyrians moved in perfect unison, raising their arms. The air around them began to shimmer and swirl, forming a translucent barrier that pulsed with energy. The shadow moors sunned against it, their shadowy forms distorting as they sought a way through. Ilara and her team watched in awe, their weapons at the ready but useless against such otherworldly foes. "How can we help?" Ilara shouted over the howling wind. Vexara, the elder, turned to them. "Your energy weapons, they may be able to disrupt the Shadowmore's form, but be warned, to strike at Shadow is to risk becoming Shadow yourself." Lieutenant Okonkwo didn't hesitate. She raised her pulse rifle and fired at the nearest Shadowmore. The beam of energy pierced through the creature, causing it to shriek in a way that resonated in their very bones. For a moment, it seemed to work. The Shadowmore's form wavered and began to dissipate. But then, to their horror, the creature began to absorb the energy, growing larger and more substantial. Its maw opened wider, revealing an abyss of hunger that threatened to devour them all. "Fall back," Ilara ordered, realizing their weapons were only making the situation worse. "She-Ra, what else can we do?" The matriarch's thoughts were a maelstrom of worry and determination. "The barrier weakens. We need to drive them back to the Shadow Caves, but our numbers are too few." Dr. Tanaka, who had been studying her instruments intently, suddenly spoke up. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive electromagnetic anomaly beneath us. It's similar to the planet's natural field, but highly concentrated." A spark of inspiration hit Ilara. "She-Ra, your people manipulate the air, but can you also affect the electromagnetic fields of your planet?" Confusion rippled through the Zephyrians, their skin flickering with uncertainty. "The song of the world," She-Ra questioned. "We feel it, yes, but to shape it, such a thing has not been done in living memory." "There's no time for doubt," Ilara pressed. "If we can generate a powerful enough electromagnetic pulse, it might disrupt the Shadowmoors long enough for us to drive them back." She-Ra's eyes widened with understanding. Yes, the ancient songs speak of such power, but it would require a joining of our peoples, a melding of your technology and our connection to Zephyria itself. The barrier flickered, the Shadowmoors pressing their advantage. They were running out of time. "What do you need from us?" Ilara asked, her voice filled with determination. "Your devices," She-Ra replied, her thoughts racing. "And your minds. We must form a circle, joining hands and thoughts. Your technology will amplify our connection to the world's song." Without hesitation, Ilara ordered her team to form a circle with the Zephyrians. They placed their various devices, communicators, scanners, even their weapons, in the center. As they joined hands, Ilara felt a rush of alien thoughts and sensations flood her mind. The boundary between self and other blurred, and suddenly she could feel the pulse of Zephyria itself thrumming beneath her feet. "Now," She-Ra's mental voice echoed through them all. "Sing with us the song of our world." A harmonic vibration rose from the group, a sound both heard and felt. The devices in the center of their circle began to glow and pulse in rhythm with their shared consciousness. The energy built to a crescendo, and then with a blinding flash and a thunderous boom, it released. A wave of electromagnetic energy rippled outward, causing the Shadowmoors to writhe and shriek in agony. For a moment, the night was as bright as day. When the light faded, the Shadowmoors were gone, driven back to their cavernous layers by a power they couldn't comprehend. As the humans and Zephyrians disentangled themselves from the mental link, there was a moment of profound silence. Then, She-Ra spoke aloud for the first time, her voice melodic and filled with awe. "You have shown us a new way, sky travelers. In joining with you, we have touched a power long forgotten. The song of Zephyria flows strong in you." Ilara, still reeling from the intensity of the experience, managed a smile. "And in that moment, we felt the true spirit of your people. I think we've both learned something profound today." As they made their way back to Whisperwind, humans and Zephyrians walked side by side, a new understanding bridging the vast differences between them. But even as they celebrated their victory, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger challenge. The Shadowmoors had been driven back, but for how long? And what other secrets did this avian world hold? As the adrenaline of battle faded, Ilara found herself filled with both excitement and trepidation for what the future might hold. Little did they know, beneath the surface of Zephyria, in the deepest shadows of the caverns, something ancient and terrible had taken notice of the new power that had entered its domain. The true test of humanity's resolve and the Zephyrians' ancient wisdom was yet to come. The looming threat. As the first light of Zephyria's azure sun crept over the horizon, Captain Ilara Chen stood at the edge of Whisperwind Village, her eyes scanning the undulating plains. The events of the previous night still weighed heavily on her mind. The victory against the Shadowmaws had been exhilarating, but it had also opened up a Pandora's box of questions and potential consequences. Dr. Marcus Rivera approached, his usual energetic demeanor subdued. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data from last night's incident. The implications are staggering. The level of psychic integration we achieved with the Zephyrians, the manipulation of planetary electromagnetic fields, it's beyond anything in our scientific understanding." Ilara nodded, her brow furrowed. "And that's what worries me, Doctor. We've stepped into something far bigger than a simple first contact mission. The Prime Directive has already been well and truly broken," Lieutenant Zara Okonkwo interjected, joining their conversation. "With all due respect, Captain, we're way past worrying about cultural contamination. We're in this now, whether we like it or not." Before Ilara could respond, a mental call from Shiro washed over them. "Sky travelers, please join us in the Hall of Winds. There is much to discuss." The human team made their way to the central structure of Whisperwind. Inside, they found the Zephyrian elders gathered around a shimmering holographic display, a technology the aliens hadn't revealed before. Jaira's skin rippled with shades of deep purple as she addressed them. "Friends, what you see before you is a map of the deep caverns beneath our world. For generations, we have kept the Shadowmaws contained in these regions." Her hand waved through the hologram, highlighting a network of tunnels and vast underground chambers. Dr. Yuki Tanaka leaned in, her geologist's eye picking up details the others missed. "These formations, they're not natural. At least, not entirely. They've been shaped." Vexara, the elder who had fought alongside them, nodded sullenly. "You perceive truly, Earth listener. Our ancestors, in their wisdom, used their mastery of wind and stone to create a labyrinth that would contain the Shadowmaws. But now, the hologram shifted, showing areas of red pulsing ominously. Shira continued, "The barriers weaken. The song of the earth grows discordant. And the Shadowmaws, they change." "Change? How?" Ilara asked, a sense of dread growing in her gut. Another elder, introduced as Luris, spoke up. "They grow smarter, more organized, and some have taken forms we've never seen before, forms that can withstand the light." A chill ran through the human team. Lieutenant Okonkwo was the first to voice what they were all thinking. They're evolving, adapting to overcome their weaknesses. Dr. Rivera's eyes widened with realization. The electromagnetic pulse we generated last night, could it have accelerated their evolution somehow? A heavy silence fell over the gathering. Shira's thoughts, when they came, were tinged with regret. It is possible. The ancient songs warn of the danger of mixing magics, or in your terms, technologies that are not fully understood. Ilara felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Their actions, however well-intentioned, might have made the situation far worse. "What can we do to help?" she asked, determination in her voice. Shira's multifaceted eyes seemed to bore into Ilara's soul. "We must seek the wisdom of the Windsingers, our most revered mystics who dwell in the Spire of Echoes. They commune directly with the spirit of Zephyria itself. If anyone can guide us in these dark times, it is they." "And where is this Spire of Echoes?" Ilara inquired. The hologram shifted again, zooming out to show a vast mountain range. At its heart stood an impossibly tall, spiraling structure that seemed to pierce the very sky. "It lies at the heart of the Whispering Peaks," Shira explained. A journey of many days through territories we have not traversed in generations. The path is perilous, guarded by ancient trials that test the worthiness of those who seek the Windsinger's counsel. Lieutenant Okonkwo studied the terrain with a tactical eye. Those canyons and ridges, perfect ambush points for the shadow moors. We'd be exposed for much of the journey. Ilara nodded, her mind racing through potential strategies. We'll need a small, mobile team, fast and adaptable. She turned to Shira. I volunteer to lead a joint human-Zephyrian expedition to the Spire. A ripple of surprise and admiration passed through the Zephyrians. Shira's skin shimmered with a mix of gold and silver, respect and concern. Your courage honors us, Captain Chen. But you must understand, the trials of the Whispering Peaks are not merely physical challenges. They will test your spirit, your very essence. Are you prepared for such a journey? Ilara stood tall, her resolve unwavering. We've come too far to back down now. Whatever challenges lie ahead, we'll face them together. As the group began to plan their expedition, a commotion outside drew their attention. They rushed to the entrance of the Hold of Winds to find a group of Zephyrian scouts supporting an injured comrade. The wounded alien's skin flickered weakly, patterns of pain and fear dancing across its surface. Matriarch. One of the scouts called out, her thoughts a jumble of panic and disbelief. We were ambushed at the eastern border, the Shadow Moors. They came in daylight. A collective gasp ran through the gathered Zephyrians. Shira's skin paled to an ashen grey. Impossible. They have never dared to venture beyond the shadows of night. The injured scouts' thoughts projected weakly into their minds, accompanied by flashes of terrifying imagery. Shadow Moors, their forms twisted and mutated, moving through dappled sunlight without hindrance. But most chilling of all was the glimpse of something larger, a presence that loomed behind the attacking creatures, ancient, intelligent, and filled with malevolent purpose. Dr. Rivera, his face pale, turned to Ilara. Captain, if the Shadow Moors can now operate in daylight, then nowhere is safe, Ilara finished grimly. The journey to the Spire of Echoes just became even more crucial and more dangerous. Shira's voice rang out, both aloud and in their minds, filled with a strength that belied her obvious fear. Prepare yourselves, all of you. We leave for the Whispering Peaks at first light tomorrow. May the winds guide us and the spirit of Zephyria protect us, for the very fate of our world now hangs in the balance. As the Zephyrians burst into action, preparing for both the journey and the defense of their village, Ilara gathered her team. This isn't what we signed up for, she said, her voice low and serious. What we're about to undertake goes far beyond our original mission parameters. I won't order any of you to come with me. This is volunteer only. Lieutenant Okonkwo stepped forward without hesitation. You're not going anywhere without me, Captain. Someone's got to watch your back. Dr. Rivera nodded, a mix of fear and excitement in his eyes. The scientific opportunities alone, I'm in. Dr. Tanaka smiled wryly. Well, someone needs to keep you lot from tripping over your own feet. Count me in. Ilara felt a surge of pride in her team. All right then, get some rest, check your gear, and be ready to move at dawn. Something tells me this is going to be the adventure of a lifetime, if we survive it. As the humans dispersed to make their preparations, Ilara found herself alone with Shira. The Zephyrian matriarch's thoughts brushed against Ilara's mind, a comforting presence despite the gravity of their situation. Your people are brave, Captain Chen. Perhaps together we can forge a future neither of us could have imagined alone. Ilara nodded, her gaze drawn to the distant peaks where their destiny awaited. Let's hope so, matriarch, for all our sakes. As night fell over Whisperwind, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe with ominous life, the joint human-Zephyrian expedition prepared for a journey into the unknown. Little did they realize that their every move was being watched, analyzed, and anticipated by an intelligence as old as Zephyria itself, an intelligence that had been waiting eons for worthy adversaries to arrive from the stars. The true test of humanity's resolve and the Zephyrians' ancient wisdom was about to begin, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. The twin sons of Zephyria had barely crested the horizon when Captain Elara Chen and her team assembled at the edge of Whisperwind Village. The air was thick with tension and the sweet, alien scent of the iridescent grass beneath their feet. Joining them were Jira, Vexara, and a small group of Zephyrian warriors, their skin shimmering with patterns of determination and barely concealed fear. Elara did one final check of her gear, environmental suit, modified to allow for better mobility, pulse rifle, adjusted to emit a wider spread electromagnetic energy, and a pack filled with survival essentials and scientific equipment. Her team mirrored her actions, each focused on their specific roles in the expedition. Remember, Elara addressed both humans and Zephyrians, "We're stronger together. We've already seen what we can accomplish when we combine our skills and knowledge. Whatever lies ahead, we face it as one." Shira nodded, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the rising suns. "Wise words, Captain. The path to the Spire of Echoes is treacherous, but it is our only hope. We must reach the Windsingers before the Shadowmoor's evolution progresses further." With a final look back at the village that had become their temporary home, the group set out across the undulating plains towards the distant, mist-shrouded peaks of the Whispering Mountains. For the first day of their journey, the landscape remained relatively familiar, rolling hills covered in the bioluminescent grass, punctuated by groves of spiral trees. But as they pressed on, the terrain began to change dramatically. The grass gave way to fields of crystalline structures that chimed softly in the breeze, creating an otherworldly melody that seemed to resonate with the Zephyrian's very being. Dr. Rivera was in his element, constantly taking samples and readings. "Fascinating," he exclaimed, examining a shard of the crystal. "These formations appear to be silicate-based, but they're unlike anything I've ever seen. They seem to be singing." Vexara nodded, a hint of pride in her mental voice. "The song crystals are unique to our world. They grow from the very essence of Zephyria, amplifying the planet's natural harmonies. Our ancestors used them to construct the great barriers that once contained the Shadowmoors." As if summoned by the mention of their name, a bone-chilling howl echoed across the crystal fields. The group instinctively drew closer together, weapons at the ready. "I thought you said they couldn't come out in daylight," Lieutenant Okonkwo said, her eyes scanning the horizon. Shira's skin rippled with concern. "They couldn't before, but as we feared, they are changing, adapting. We must move swiftly." The group quickened their pace, the melody of the song crystals taking on a more urgent tempo. As they reached the edge of the crystal fields, the ground began to slope upward, marking the beginning of the Whispering Mountains. It was here that they encountered their first true challenge. The path narrowed, winding between towering cliffs of a strange, mutable stone that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Suddenly, the rock face before them split open, revealing a dark cavern. "The Passage of Whispers," Shira explained. "One of the trials we must face to reach the spire. It is said that the cave tests the unity and resolve of those who enter." Elara steeled herself. "No turning back now. Let's go." As they entered the cave, darkness enveloped them, broken only by the soft bioluminescence of the Zephyrian's skin and the lights on the human suits. The air grew thick and heavy, filled with whispers that danced at the edge of comprehension. Dr. Tanaka, bringing up the rear, suddenly called out in alarm. "Captain, the entrance, it's gone." Elara spun around to see solid rock where the cave mouth had been moments before. Panic threatened to set in, but she forced it down. "Stay calm, everyone. This is part of the trial. We need to find another way out." The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Each member of the group began to hear voices, some familiar, some strange, all speaking directly to their deepest fears and insecurities. "You're not fit to lead," Elara heard her own voice hiss. "You're going to get everyone killed." Lieutenant Okonkwo gripped her weapon tighter, her eyes wild. "They're coming. was surrounded. The twin suns of Zephyria had barely crested the horizon when Captain Elara Chen and her team assembled at the edge of Whisperwind Village. The air was thick with tension and the sweet, alien scent of the iridescent grass beneath their feet. Joining them was Jira, Vexara, and a small group of Zephyrian warriors, their skin shimmering with patterns of determination and barely concealed fear. Elara did one final check of her gear. Environmental suit, modified to allow for better mobility, pulse rifle, adjusted to emit a wider spread of electromagnetic energy, and a pack filled with survival essentials and scientific equipment. Her team mirrored her actions, each focused on their specific roles in the expedition. Remember, Elara addressed both humans and Zephyrians, we're stronger together. We've already seen what we can accomplish when we combine our skills and knowledge. Whatever lies ahead, we face it as one. Shira nodded, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the rising suns. Wise words, Captain. The path to the Spire of Echoes is treacherous, but it is our only hope. We must reach the Windsingers before the Shadowmoor's evolution progresses further. With a final look back at the village that had become their temporary home, the group set out across the undulating plains towards the distant, mist-shrouded peaks of the Whispering Mountains. For the first day of their journey, the landscape remained relatively familiar, rolling hills covered in the bioluminescent grass, punctuated by groves of spiral trees. But as they pressed on, the terrain began to change dramatically. The grass gave way to fields of crystalline structures that chimed softly in the breeze, creating an otherworldly melody that seemed to resonate with the Zephyrian's very being. Dr. Rivera was in his element, constantly taking samples and readings. Fascinating, he exclaimed, examining a shard of the crystal. These formations appear to be silicate-based, but they're unlike anything I've ever seen. They seem to be singing. Vexara nodded, a hint of pride in her mental voice. The song crystals are unique to our world. They grow from the very essence of Zephyria, amplifying the planet's natural harmonies. Our ancestors used them to construct the great barriers that once contained the Shadowmoors. As if summoned by the mention of their name, a bone-chilling howl echoed across the crystal fields. The group instinctively drew closer together, weapons at the ready. I thought you said they couldn't come out in daylight, Lieutenant Okonkwo said, her eyes scanning the horizon. Shira's skin rippled with concern. They couldn't before, but as we feared, they are changing, adapting. We must move swiftly. The group quickened their pace, the melody of the song crystals taking on a more urgent tempo. As they reached the edge of the crystal fields, the ground began to slope upward, marking the beginning of the Whispering Mountains. It was here that they encountered their first true challenge. The path narrowed, winding between towering cliffs of a strange, mutable stone that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Suddenly, the rock face before them split open, revealing a dark cavern. The Passage of Whispers, Shira explained. One of the trials we must face to reach the spire. It is said that the cave tests the unity and resolve of those who enter. Elara steeled herself. No turning back now. Let's go. As they entered the cave, darkness enveloped them, broken only by the soft bioluminescence of the Zephyrian's skin and the lights on the human suits. The air grew thick and heavy, filled with whispers that danced at the edge of comprehension. Dr. Tanaka, bringing up the rear, suddenly called out in alarm. Captain, the entrance, it's gone. Elara spun around to see solid rock where the cave mouth had been moments before. Panic threatened to set in, but she forced it down. Stay calm, everyone. This is part of the trial. We need to find another way out. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Each member of the group began to hear voices, some familiar, some strange, all speaking directly to their deepest fears and insecurities. You're not fit to lead, Elara heard her own voice hiss. You're going to get everyone killed. Lieutenant Okonkwo gripped her weapon tighter, her eyes wild. They're coming. We're surrounded. Dr. Rivera fell to his knees, clutching his head. The data, it's all wrong. Everything we know is a lie. The Zephyrians weren't faring much better, their skin flickering chaotically with patterns of distress and confusion. Ilara realized with growing horror that the cave was feeding on their fears, threatening to tear the group apart. She fought against the whispers in her mind, forcing herself to focus. "Everyone," she shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony of whispers. "Join hands. Remember what we did against the Shadowmoors. We're stronger together." It took every ounce of willpower, but slowly humans and Zephyrians alike reached out to one another. As their hands clasped, a spark of energy passed between them. The mental link they had forged during the battle with the Shadowmoors re-established itself, but this time it was deeper, more profound. Ilara felt the fears and doubts of her companions wash over her, but instead of drowning in them, she found strength. In that moment of connection, she understood that their differences, human and Zephyrian, scientist and warrior, were not weaknesses, but sources of incredible power when united. A harmonious tone began to build within the group, drowning out the malevolent whispers. It grew in intensity until it filled the entire cavern, causing the very rock to vibrate. With a thunderous crack, the cave wall before them split open, revealing a passage bathed in soft, blue light. As they emerged, blinking, into the illuminated tunnel, they found themselves higher up the mountain, the spire of echoes looming closer than ever. Shira's thoughts reached out to them all, filled with awe and respect. "You have passed the first trial, Sky Travelers. The passage of whispers tests the bonds between companions, seeking to sow discord and doubt. Your unity in the face of your deepest fears is unprecedented." Ilara looked at her team, human and Zephyrian alike, with newfound appreciation. "We've only just begun to scratch the surface of what we can achieve together." As they took a moment to rest and recover from the ordeal, Dr. Rivera approached Ilara, his eyes shining with excitement despite his obvious exhaustion. "Captain, the readings I took in that cave, the energy generated by our mental link, it's off the charts. If we could harness that power, it might be our key to defeating the Shadowmoors," Ilara finished, the implications dawning on her. But before they could discuss further, a series of explosions rocked the mountainside. Dust and debris rained down as a massive form burst from the rock face above them, a Shadowmoor unlike any they had seen before. It was enormous, its body a writhing mass of shadows that seemed to devour the very light around it. And at its core, pulsing with malevolent energy, was a cluster of song crystals. "Impossible," Vexara gasped, her thoughts radiating horror. "They've learned to use the crystals against us." The monstrous Shadowmoor let out a roar that shook the very mountain, its gaze fixed upon the small group of humans and Zephyrians. In that moment, Ilara realized that their journey had just become a race against time. They needed to reach the Spire of Echoes and unlock the secrets of Zephyria before the Shadowmoor's evolution outpaced their ability to fight back. As the creature lunged towards them, Ilara made a split-second decision. "Everyone, link up. We need to recreate that energy from the cave." The final stand. As the monstrous Shadowmoor bore down upon them, Captain Ilara Chen's order rang out across the mountainside. Without hesitation, humans and Zephyrians alike clasped hands, forming a circle as they had in the Passage of Whispers. The creature's roar reverberated through their bodies, but they stood firm, united in the face of overwhelming odds. Ilara felt the now familiar rush of alien thoughts and sensations flood her mind as the mental link established itself. But this time, there was something different, a resonance, a harmony that hadn't been there before. She could sense the very essence of her companions, human and Zephyrian alike, their fears and hopes intermingling with her own. "Focus." Shira's mental voice cut through the chaos. "Feel the song of Zephyria beneath your feet. Let it flow through you, amplify it." Ilara closed her eyes, reaching out with senses she never knew she possessed. There, beneath the thunderous approach of the Shadowmoor, she felt it, a subtle vibration, a melody so profound it seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. Dr. Rivera's voice, tinged with awe and scientific excitement, echoed in their shared consciousness. The song crystals. They're not just amplifying the planet's energy, they're conduits for a form of quantum entanglement on a planetary scale. Less theorizing, more action. Lieutenant Okonkwo's thoughts cut in, sharp with urgency. That thing's almost on top of us. Ilara's eyes snapped open just as the shadow maw lunged, its maw gaping wide to swallow them whole. Time seemed to slow. In that moment of crisis, something clicked into place in Ilara's mind. An understanding of the intricate dance of energies that flowed through Zephyria, through the Zephyrians, and now through the humans as well. Now, Ilara shouted, both aloud and in their shared mindscape. Everyone project the song outward. A pulse of pure energy erupted from the linked group, a harmonious wave that collided with the shadow maw in mid-leap. The creature's shadowy form contorted, the song crystals embedded in its core resonating with the energy. For a moment, it seemed as if the monster would simply absorb the attack, growing stronger. But then, with a sound like shattering glass, the crystals within the shadow maw began to fracture. Cracks of brilliant light spread across its shadowy mass. The creature let out a shriek of agony that shook the very mountain. "Don't let up," Shira's mental voice urged them on, with breaking its connection to the corrupted crystals. Ilara felt as if her very being was being poured into the sustained energy wave. Every cell in her body sang with the power flowing through her. Besides her, she could sense her companions. Dr. Rivera's analytical mind, working to understand and refine the energy, Lieutenant Okonkwo's tactical acumen directing the flow, Dr. Tanaka's deep connection to the earth beneath them, anchoring their efforts. The Zephyrians added their ancestral knowledge, their innate connection to their world, amplifying the humans' technological understanding. With a final, earth-shattering roar, the shadow maw exploded in a burst of shadow and light. Shards of purified song crystals rained down around them, chiming with a pure, clear tone that seemed to cleanse the very air. As the dust settled, the group slowly disentangled themselves from the mental link, each looking at the others with newfound respect and understanding. That was incredible, Dr. Rivera breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. We just witnessed the successful integration of two completely distinct energy manipulation techniques. The scientific implications are staggering. Lieutenant Okonkwo, ever practical, was already scanning their surroundings. Let's save the scientific breakthroughs for later, Doc. I doubt that was the only oversized nasty out there. Ilara nodded, her mind racing with the implications of what they'd just accomplished. Agreed. We need to reach the Spire of Echoes as soon as possible. If we can replicate and amplify what we just did, we might have a chance of cleansing our entire world of the shadow maw corruption, Jira finished, her multifaceted eyes shimmering with hope. But their victory was short-lived. A deep rumbling began to emanate from the depths of the mountain, growing in intensity with each passing moment. Cracks began to appear in the rocky ground beneath their feet. Dr. Tanaka's face paled as she consulted her geological scanner. "Captain, the energy release from our battle with the shadow maw, it's triggered some kind of seismic event. The entire mountain range is becoming unstable." As if to punctuate her words, a massive fissure opened up just yards away from the group, belching forth noxious fumes and a writhing mass of smaller shadow maws. "Run," Ilara shouted, urging the group towards the path leading up to the Spire of Echoes. They raced up the treacherous mountain trail, the ground crumbling beneath their feet with each step. All around them, the whispering mountains were coming alive with shadow and malevolence. Swarms of winged shadow maws darkened the sky, while massive, worm-like creatures burst from the rock face, their maws lined with crystalline teeth. "It's like the entire ecosystem has been corrupted," Dr. Rivera gasped as they ran. "The shadow maws aren't just evolving, they're terraforming the planet to suit their needs." They were nearing the base of the spire when a particularly violent tremor brought them to their knees. A deafening crack split the air, and Elara looked up in horror to see the impossibly tall structure of the spire beginning to tilt. No, Jira's mental cry was filled with anguish. The Windsingers, they're still inside. Elara made a split-second decision. Shira, Vexora, take half the team and evacuate the spire. The rest of us will hold off the Shadowmaws and buy you time. But Captain, Lieutenant Okonkwo protested, without the full team, we can't generate enough energy to. We'll find a way. Elara cut her off, her voice filled with a determination she didn't entirely feel. We have to. As Jira led her group towards the spire's entrance, Elara turned to face the oncoming horde of Shadowmaws. Her remaining team, a mix of humans and Zephyrians, formed a defensive circle, their backs to the tilting spire. Any ideas, Doc? Elara asked, her pulsed rifle trained on the approaching swarm. Dr. Rivera's eyes darted between his instruments and the advancing creatures. The song crystals, he said suddenly. They're everywhere, even in the rock itself, if we can find a way to resonate with them all at once. We might be able to purify the entire area, Elara finished. But how? We don't have enough people to generate that kind of energy. A Zephyrian warrior, her skin pulsing with determination, stepped forward. The spire, she said, her thoughts echoing in their minds. It was built as a focus for the planet's energy, if we can link with it. Elara nodded, a desperate plan forming in her mind. All right, listen up. We need to form a chain from here to the spire. Everyone, link hands and focus on channeling energy upwards. Dr. Rivera, you're our anchor. Use every instrument we've got to amplify the signal. As the team scrambled to follow her orders, the first wave of Shadowmaws crashed against their hastily formed defenses. Elara found herself at the forefront, one hand linked to the human Zephyrian chain, the other firing her pulse rifle into the seething mass of shadows. The air crackled with energy as they fought to establish the link with the spire. Elara could feel the power building, a pressure that threatened to tear her apart from the inside. But still, it wasn't enough. Just as despair began to set in, a new presence entered their shared mindscape, ancient, wise, and unimaginably powerful. The Windsingers, Elara gasped, recognizing the alien consciousness. With the addition of the Windsinger's power, the energy reached a crescendo. A blinding pillar of light erupted from the spire, piercing the dark clouds above. The song crystals embedded throughout the mountains began to resonate, their pure tone drowning out the shrieks of the Shadowmaws. Wave after wave of purifying energy pulsed outward, each one pushing back the tide of darkness. Shadowmaws dissolved into motes of light, the corrupted landscape healing itself before their very eyes. As the final pulse faded, Elara fell to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. Around her, humans and Zephyrians alike were embracing, their joy and relief palpable. Jira approached, supporting one of the Windsingers, an ancient Zephyrian whose skin shimmered with patterns more complex than any Elara had seen before. Captain Chen, the Windsinger's thoughts touched Elara's mind, filled with gratitude and wisdom. You and your people have done what we thought impossible. You've reawakened the true song of Zephyria and shown us a new harmony between our worlds. Elara stood, her legs shaky but her spirit soaring. We couldn't have done it without you, without all of us working together. As the twin suns of Zephyria began to set, painting the purified landscape in hues of gold and lavender, Elara looked out over the transformed world. The Shadowmaw threat had been neutralized, but she knew this was only the beginning. There were still mysteries to unravel, wonders to explore, and a newfound alliance to nurture. So, Lieutenant Okonkwo said, coming to stand beside her, "What's our next move, Captain?" Elara smiled, her gaze drawn to the stars just beginning to appear in the twilight sky. "We came here to explore strange new worlds," she said. "I'd say we've only just scratched the surface." As humans and Zephyrians gathered around her, each eager to share their thoughts on the future, Elara felt a sense of limitless possibility. Whatever challenges lay ahead, They would face them together, two species united by curiosity, courage, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of crisis. The true adventure, Ilara realized, was only just beginning. A new understanding. The days following the battle at the Spire of Echoes were a whirlwind of activity. As the dust settled and the last echoes of the Great Purification faded, both humans and Zephyrians found themselves in a period of profound change and reflection. Captain Ilara Chen stood at the entrance of the newly established Joint Research Center, a structure that seamlessly blended human technology with Zephyrian organic architecture. The building itself was a testament to the newfound alliance between their species, a physical manifestation of the bridges they had built. Dr. Marcus Rivera burst out of the lab, his eyes alight with excitement. "Captain, you won't believe the breakthroughs we're making. The integration of our quantum theory with Zephyrian energy manipulation techniques. It's revolutionary. We're rewriting the laws of physics as we know them." Ilara smiled, infected by the scientist's enthusiasm. "That's fantastic, Doctor. But remember, we're here to learn as much as we are to teach. What insights have the Zephyrians shared?" As if on cue, Jira approached, her skin shimmering with patterns of contentment and intellectual curiosity. "Your people's understanding of the universe's fundamental forces is truly fascinating, Captain Chen. It complements our intuitive connection to the world's energies in ways we never imagined possible." The matriarch's gaze turned to the horizon, where the Spire of Echoes stood tall once more, fully restored and pulsing with pure energy. The windsingers speak of a new age dawning. The harmony we've achieved, it's unprecedented in our history. Lieutenant Zara Okonkwo joined them, her usual stern expression softened by a hint of wonder. "I've been working with the Zephyrian warriors, exchanging combat techniques. Their ability to manipulate local wind currents for tactical advantage is incredible. Combined with our technology, we could revolutionize peacekeeping efforts across the galaxy." Ilara nodded, a mix of pride and caution in her voice. "Just remember, Lieutenant, our primary mission here is peaceful exploration and cultural exchange. We need to be careful about sharing military applications of our combined knowledge." Agreed, Jira's thoughts resonated with approval. The power we now wield together comes with great responsibility. We must ensure it is used wisely. As they spoke, Dr. Yuki Tanaka emerged from a nearby tunnel, accompanied by Vexara. Both were covered in glittering crystal dust. "Captain," Dr. Tanaka called out, her voice filled with awe, "you need to see this. We've discovered chambers deep within the mountain that seem to predate even Zephyrian civilization. The crystals there, they're unlike anything we've encountered so far." Vexara's skin pulsed with shades of deep blue, a sign of profound contemplation. The songs captured in those ancient crystals speak of times long past, of visitors from beyond the stars who came long before your arrival. Perhaps your coming was foretold ages ago. The implication sent a shiver down Ilara's spine. The mystery of their seemingly predestined arrival on Zephyria, the rapid bond they had formed with its people, the incredible compatibility of their technologies and abilities, it all hinted at a cosmic design far beyond their current understanding. As the group made their way to the newly discovered chambers, Ilara found herself reflecting on the whirlwind of events that had led them to this point. What had begun as a routine exploration mission had transformed into something far more profound, the birth of an interstellar alliance that could reshape the future of both their species. The ancient chamber was a marvel of crystalline structures, each facet capturing and refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. But it was the central crystal formation that drew everyone's attention, a massive, multifaceted gem that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Dr. Rivera approached it cautiously, his instruments whirring. The energy readings are off the charts. It's as if this crystal is tapping into the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Jira stepped forward, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the crystal's glow. "I feel a presence, ancient beyond measure, yet somehow familiar." As if responding to her words, the crystal flared to life. A holographic projection filled the chamber, showing star systems, swirling galaxies, and the unmistakable forms of various alien species, some familiar, many utterly unknown. A voice, neither male nor female, neither human nor Zephyrian, echoed through their minds. "Greetings, children of Earth and Zephyria. Your union was foreseen eons ago, a crucial step in the cosmic dance. You stand now at a crossroads of destiny. The challenges you have faced were but a prelude to the trials that await. The universe is vaster, more wondrous, and more perilous than you can imagine. But together, you have the potential to shape the very fabric of reality." The images shifted, showing glimpses of incredible technologies, of worlds transformed, of battles against forces that defied comprehension, but also of beauty, of discovery, of the triumph of unity over division. The choice, as always, is yours. Will you embrace your entwined destinies? Will you rise to meet the challenges that lie ahead, not just for your own worlds, but for all of creation? As the voice faded and the hologram winked out, the chamber was left in stunned silence. The humans and Zephyrians looked at each other, a mix of awe, fear, and determination on their faces. Ilara was the first to speak, her voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. "Well, it seems our mission parameters have just been significantly expanded." Dr. Rivera chuckled nervously. "Talk about a game changer. The scientific communities back on Earth are going to have a field day with this." Lieutenant Okonkwo's eyes gleamed with the light of challenge. "Whatever's out there, we'll be ready for it. Humanity's never backed down from a fight, especially not with allies like the Zephyrians at our side." Jira's thoughts washed over them, a soothing presence in the face of the unknown. Our peoples were brought together for a purpose greater than ourselves. The path ahead may be fraught with danger, but it is also filled with infinite possibility. Ilara looked around at her team, human and Zephyrian alike, and felt a surge of pride and determination. They had faced the impossible and emerged stronger. Whatever cosmic destiny awaited them, they would face it together. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice ringing with purpose. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Let's start by analyzing every bit of data in this chamber. We need to understand our place in this larger cosmic picture." As the team sprang into action, Ilara cast one last look at the central crystal. The future was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril. But one thing was clear: the adventure that had begun with a simple exploration mission was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The stars awaited, and the combined crews of humanity and Zephyria were ready to answer their call. Together, they would forge a path into a future beyond their wildest dreams, shaping the destiny of not just their own worlds, but of the very cosmos itself. As Ilara turned to join her team in their analysis, a small smile played on her lips. Whatever lay ahead, she knew that they would face it as they had faced every challenge so far, with courage, curiosity, and the unbreakable bonds of friendship forged across the stars. The end and a new beginning.